I work with women leaders who want to really look at what that next step looks like. I partner with individuals. We work alongside each other, dig deep, self-reflect, and boy, I get so excited when I see people get to that point.
Unbelievable. The work that you do is so impactful. I have seen just incredible transformations. And can you talk a little bit about helping leaders really switch on their A game? Like, what does it take for somebody to really step into their confidence, own their power, to have the kind of impact that they're meant to have?
That's a great question, Amy, and one that comes up every day in my conversations with leaders. I will say that I always like looking at what's the rock that's in the way, the first big rock. And I would say the first big rock in working in organizations sometimes is that I'm too busy to self-reflect. I can't, and I've been there before, so I can sit right alongside leaders and understand where they're coming from. But so many times I hear people say, I want to work on how I get to that next level. I want to work on my confidence. How do I get a seat at the table? I don't have time. And so one of the very first things I like to do in empowering leaders is to look at changing that mindset and owning time and letting go of those old stories that really sometimes just is that big rock and keeps us stuck. So I would say the very first area that is so important is looking at changing mindset and freeing time up. And then the real work can begin.
Yes, I love that because it's giving to ourselves the time that we so freely give to everybody else. Thank you for sharing that. So I know that another big hurdle for leaders, especially if they're elevating in position, if they're moving up the ranks inside an organization, maybe they're now overseeing others for the first time, often they come up to the edge of their confidence. And being at the edge is a good thing, but sometimes if we don't feel confident, it can hold us back. So when you work with leaders, how do you help them grow into their confidence?
Another great question, and such a common theme with leaders, especially in that cusp. So I would say, Amy, wow, there's so many different ways I could answer that. But the very first thing is that inner critic, right? Working on the stories that get in the way of recognizing that I'm worth doing this, and that there's a reason why I'm sitting at the table. I was just talking to a woman leader that I'm working with and coaching, and we had to really do some really strong work on the reason why I'm being asked to sit at this interview is because other people see I have the worth and I have the experience, and I have to now believe it, right? That was getting in her way of her believing it. And she did the work. I absolutely loved it, and later she was able to say, wow, it helped me so much to just show up in the way that I didn't think I could, right? So I think that that's really a big one. But then it's self-reflection, right? So confidence is huge, but that self-reflection of what is it that I need to shift now in my new role to lead others, to lead a team. And sometimes it's those blind spots that come up through self-reflection that might be hard to look at, but are necessary to continue to rise. And so I love helping leaders look at those blind spots, and that could be how I communicate with other people. It could be listening skills. It could be, how am I understanding the person that I'm managing? That might be different than how I manage the next person, right? So it's really kind of taking it to that next level and just showing empathy and empowerment and listening, communication, and all those leadership competencies.
I love that you brought up empathy and communication. It's I think when you walk alongside a leader, I really see your 360 approach, which is so amazing. And I think it speaks to the fact that your experience, you were there, you were in this seat. And I know that there's nothing like somebody saying, I've been where you are, and I'm going to help you get to where you want to be. So that's so powerful. And it's a gift that you have. You talked a little bit about teams and being the leader of a team. And with that, holding the space for a vision, but then also making sure that there's alignment throughout the team to the vision in order to achieve the goals. I know this is something that a lot of leaders can struggle with, either coming up with the vision or rallying the team around the collective vision. What would you say to a leader who's in that position and wants to have the team aligned?
I would say that's a great spot to be in, right? Because the ability to recognize it first is the first step. And then from there, I believe so strongly, and you know this, Amy, right? We've talked about this. I talk about this when I speak or when I'm talking, just engaging with individuals, is that the very first step is looking at maybe the organization or the company's values. And then aligning and asking individuals in the team, what are your values? And how are you being true to your values? Because when we're true to our values and we see the connection to the values of the company, that's where the magic happens. That's where the energy comes from. So the passion equals the energy equals the motivation equals the productivity, right? So I believe that foundation of it all, of the connecting teams and getting what we really want from teams and having people happy and vibrant in their workplace is starting off with connecting to the values.
Oh, so powerful, Sheila, powerful. I could listen to you talk about values all day long. So I have to ask, what are your values?
Yes, I can say wholeheartedly that I need to connect every day with my values of authenticity, of integrity, of honesty, of compassion, of helping. And I can't forget collaboration, because I just get so much energy from talking to unbelievably beautiful people like you and the other people I surround myself with. So that collaboration is really important.
Oh, so beautiful. And all of the values that you said ring true in everything, in every way that you show up, in every space that you are. Authentic, integrity, honesty. Oh, just so good. So what do you want to say? What would you say to a leader that doesn't know their values, that has never taken the time to self-reflect, but wants to? Where do they even start?
Well, this is the work I do, right? So I sit alongside with people and help them to look at where their values are, right? So values are really about where we come from. We form them from where we come from. I oftentimes say the review mirror. I have a speaking engagement on that. And, if we can look at where we come from and really connect it to our heart, that's where we can find it, right? Some people can't come up with the words, and so I help with the words. I help with the visualizations. I help with designing how individuals then can keep it close to their world on a daily basis. One of the things I do in the morning, I was asked this yesterday in WBL actually, and one of the things was, what's self-care? And what I said was, my very first thing in self-care is taking time for me in the morning to visualize, but also to align, like, wait, these are my values and what's in front of me today. How do I need to stay true to them so I can really be there for each and every individual that I need to be there for? So I would help that person uncover them, but also activate them and learn how to align them.
Yes, you're all about activation. And I love that, because as busy women, we have no time for fluff or anything that, just we want, give us the action steps, right? Like give us the tools and we're going to go. So I love that you're about activation. How can women leaders specifically activate in a company, in an organization, so that they're seen as the leader that they know themselves deep down to be? If somebody is just, popping on, listening for like 1 minute, and you could just give them a couple of nuggets about really stepping into their power, like what are some key takeaways that we can give them today that they can really action that is going to show results in their career?
I would say reshape your thoughts into the words like, I can do this, I will do this. I oftentimes say then the next one is kick that saboteur to the curb. Take ownership of it. Don't just let it sit there and identify it, but take ownership of it. And then I would also say, work on those deepening skills that you know you need to step forward, because we all do. So identify it and then build a path of designing what that looks like, whether it's engaging in coaching, whether it's developing a leadership development program or attending one. And as a women leader in an organization, I would say connect with the other women in the organization or other women networking groups. I love women affinity groups. I love co-designing groups with organizations and holding that space within companies so that there is a resource group available to women leaders. So there's safety in talking about some of those challenges, but then how we can overcome them together.
I love that you talk about culture. I think we've all been in these situations where we're in an organization and the culture just isn't what it should be. I've been there. I'm sure you have. As a leader, if you're feeling that, if you're recognizing that the culture isn't up to the standard that you want it and isn't supporting the work that you want to do, what is the right next step?
I would say the right next step is to pause. Sometimes our brains will bring us to, I need to leave. And that might be the case. But without pausing and getting a pulse for what's going on inside of me, and then strategically figuring out what's the best thing for me, right? We can then make decisions. If we don't do that, we'll make decisions that really don't support what our own growth and vision is. So the first step I would say is pause and find somebody in a safe space to talk it through. I really truly believe in the power of what can I control versus what I can't control. I believe in the fact that I can either be part of the problem or part of the solution. And I would say what not to do: not engage in that drama, not engage in that negativity, no matter who it is within your organization, because it's gonna be that weight almost that would bring you down. So figure out a way to rise above it, to take space, to find the right person to talk to about it, and then to create the plan. That plan might be to stay and to work it through and to, work on the communication and all the other leadership skills, or the decision might be that it's time now to realign what I need to be doing, right? And find it elsewhere. But sometimes without that pause, people make decisions that just aren't true to them.
So many gems, Sheila, so many gems. I'm like catching all of your pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much. It's just so good. There's just so much richness to the work that you do and to what you bring and what you offer. I love the quote, success leaves clues.
I love that.
You have a front row seat to so many high performing, highly successful leaders. What do you think that you see in common from the leaders that are really amazing at driving vision, leaders that from the outside, seem to have it all put together and seem to make it look easy? What do you see in terms of commonalities, and what do high performing leaders all have in common that somebody could look at and say, you know what, I aspire to be like that, so I'm going to work on the same habits or the same traits?
I believe those high performing leaders, although everybody manages it differently, I would say there's a common theme around juggling multiple responsibilities and overwhelm. I know for myself, I can visualize right now a leader that did not do a good job at managing that, and that spilled over in the strategic thinking, in developing the relationships and the trust and the connection with teams. I also know a leader that would set boundaries, would find time for themselves, and yet was creative and strategic in aligning their teams and happy and healthy. That's what I strive for. And I wasn't always there. And even today, every day is different. I try my best. But I believe that the commonality is how to manage it. And so much comes into how to manage it, right? People are watching, people are looking, people are following. So those high-level leaders really need to get a check on that. And then from there, right, everything flows.
Such great advice. I heard you say one of my favorite words, which is boundaries.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about the importance, about how to keep them strong. I mean, in my life, they are probably the most, it's always the journey, right? Is to always be assessing and always changing and growing as life changes and grows. But talk to me a little bit about boundaries and how we can put them to work in our lives.
Boundaries are huge. And I will say sometimes boundaries can be taken as too much of a step forward, right? So that it then molds into rigidity or inability to talk to the person I need to talk to. But boundaries, if I don't have self boundaries, right, I'm going to be exhausted by 10 o'clock in the morning. Right. Never mind show up for the meetings at 2 and 3 and 4, or be available to my family. So boundaries have to really be in place. There's so much to say about it, Amy.
I love
being able to say, I was going to say being able to say yes, being able to say no, right? And being able to have the boundary in a professional space. You and I talk about empowerment all day long, and this is what we breed and we believe in. And yet as a leader in an organization, sometimes we have to hold someone else accountable, right? We need to set the boundary and say, okay, I've provided you the space. I've allowed you the learning. I've empowered you the learning. You're still not up to the speed that you need to be. And so therefore, with that type of a boundary, it's necessary in order to help the organization, really. So boundaries are about self-care. Boundaries are about being able to say yes and no. And boundaries are also about being able to know when the trigger needs to be in place to have that difficult conversation.
I love too the whole full circle of values to boundaries, right? And if they're aligned, that's what makes it all work. I could just talk to you forever. I love the way that you view leadership. I think it's fresh. I think it's new. It's different, and you have so much to give. So all the leaders that work with you are just so lucky. I was so fortunate to work with you and come alongside you, because I think that your ideas